Who would have seen this one coming? Yes, you've read the title, and I'm sure you've seen the stories that have broke over the weekend. Luca Marini is in talks to join Repsol Honda as Marc Marquez's replacement. Now, as this video has been recorded, it isn't official yet, but there's sources from the paddock, and our sources say that this move looks like it's going to be a done deal and should be announced at some point this week of the Qatar Grand Prix. If you had said to me a few weeks ago who I would have thought would be replacing Marc Marquez, I wouldn't have thought Luca Marini, but things change so fast in MotoGP, and there's so much to unpack from all of this. There is the history of Valentino Rossi, of course, Luca Marini's brother, his history with Honda, the Marc Marquez, just replacing Marc Marquez it's just incredible. The fact that Marini is willing to jump from the best bike on the grid in the Ducati and wants to be the rider, a factory rider, that is his dream, and to turn around the misfortunes of Honda. It's really admirable. I think fair play to Luca Marini for wanting to take this challenge on. We've seen how bad the Honda is this year and what it has done to two world champions, especially Marc Marquez, Joan Mir. If you didn't know, there's this incredible stat. It's not really a wanted stat, but the factory Honda team, Repsol Honda, the most successful team in MotoGP history, have had 50 crashes this year. 50 crashes in the MotoGP class. That is just a stat that I thought would never happen. I knew the bike was bad going into this year. We all knew the struggles that Honda had. But the fact that they've had 50 crashes between them is just maybe the worst stat that Honda could ever have imagined. I know they haven't performed, and they have won a race this year with Alex Rins. It is the worst Honda I've ever seen in my lifetime as a MotoGP fan. And Luca Marini is on the best bike. He's on the GP22. He's on the bike from last year's championship winning bike. And going into next season, if he had have stayed with VR46, he'd be getting the championship winning bike in the GP23. But no, there seems to be this thing with Luca Marini and how he has spoke about Honda and being a factory rider. You know, he is really putting it out there that he wants to ride for Honda. And in fact, growing up, you know, the Repsol Honda colours, seeing his brother ride for Repsol Honda, seeing his brother win world championships for Honda, I think it's kind of following in the footsteps. But I wouldn't have imagined it in this way. You know, it looked like for so long we were going to see Fabio Di Giannantonio replace Marc Marquez. And then there was rumours of Fermín Aldeguer, who we'll get on to because he comes into this. And we'll talk about that later. But then this weekend, things start happening. We see reports from publication Speed Week. They say Marini to Honda is on. And it all came from an interview essentially from Alessio Salucci, Uccio, who runs the VR46 team alongside Pablo Nieto. And he said that Luca wants this and he would love to keep him at VR46 for next season, but it has always been the dream of Luca and Valentino since he started racing that they would get him into a factory seat, and this is the opportunity. And I think someone like Marini, who has had a lot of years on the Ducati since he started MotoGP in 2021, he can bring a lot of useful feedback, and we always hear it from the journalists and the media, especially people that get to speak to Luca every single weekend. He's so precise and detailed, and he can explain things very well with his comments about what he feels on a bike and how, you know, they're trying to fix problems or solutions. I think that's what Honda needs, someone that comes in with a positive mindset and isn't defeated already by the bike, which we've seen so many great riders come into Repsol Honda and struggle. Like you look at even this year, Joan Mir, Jorge Lorenzo, Alex Marquez, Pol Espargaro, we've seen them all really struggle to get to grips with the Honda, and they just look mentally defeated by it. And that even goes for Marc Marquez. This year, it's the final straw for him. He can't deal with the Honda anymore. He can't conquer it, and that's why he's jumping to Gresini Racing on a Ducati. But for Luca Marini to set his stall out and say, this would be a dream of mine to race for a factory team, and the history that there is with Honda and Rossi, of course. I think fair play, and it's something really interesting. I actually think Luca Marini, in terms of a riding style, he's ultra smooth. He's very... Out of the Ducati riders, when I watch him, he appears to me to be the smoothest rider when I watch him. He's very good on the throttle. He looks after his tyres. Very consistent lap times when you see his race runs. Sometimes his weakness is that he doesn't really get going straight away at the start of a race, but he improves as the race goes on. Yeah, Marini has the chance now. I believe the negotiations are happening at some point. And who knows, they could have been signed by now, but we don't know anything. We're just waiting on official news. Marini has the temperament that Honda need. They were going to take a risk, but we were led to believe that Fermin Aldegar, the Moto2 sensation, he was in talks for the Repsol Honda and had an offer. Honda came out and denied this. Would Honda have went for someone with the approach of someone similar to Marc Marquez, not in terms of how good they were in Moto2, but in terms of the age? Would they promote someone so early in their career and is so inexperienced that they've only had a couple of seasons in Moto2 to then ride this Honda? It's a big risk. It's very different when they promoted Marc Marquez. They were the best team, they had the best bike, and he was the best rider available, and we know how that went. It's a very different situation, and I think they needed someone with... Marini is still quite young, but he has a very experienced head. He doesn't seem to get really rattled by anything, or his mentality seems just very calm. And I think it's a bit like Valentino in that sense. He comes across as, everything is kind of under control. He'll present it to you in a good way. To go for the Honda, he will see himself, increase in terms of salary. We believe he's one of the lowest paid riders on the grid. Moving to Honda, the Repsol sponsor, that's going to increase your salary by a lot. You're going to get a lot more eyes looking at you in terms of advertising, global reach around the world. It's the most recognizable MotoGP team. That in itself will give Luca a bigger push. And not to forget, another good point is Marc Marquez's team, they aren't moving on. Santi Hernandez is staying. I put a social media post out earlier on. Santi Hernandez worked with Valentino Rossi in the first few years of the Repsol Honda project as a Showa engineer. So he worked on the suspension side, he was on Rossi's team. And 20 years later at the Valencia test, we could see Luca Marini working with Santi Hernandez. It all comes full circle, and Valentino Rossi could be back inside a Repsol Honda box at some point in 2024 if this happens. We've seen Rossi come back and he's been like Marini's spotter out on track, and he's came back and looked at the data and he's looked at the lap times, and we've seen the shots of him in the garage. Can you imagine Valentino Rossi being back inside the Repsol Honda box after all those years away? Yeah, it seems quite surreal. And there's also a funny side of it. Of course, as you know, Valentino Rossi retired in 2021 and he got 8 out of his 9 World Championship bikes that he won on. And the one bike that he doesn't have is the 2001 500cc Honda. And is there a part where he puts in the contract, if Luca joins, I want this bike? But yeah, I could be the master plan for Rossi all along. So we've looked at Honda's replacement for Marc Marquez, with it being Luca Marini. But then who replaces Marini? And now this is the thing that I've seen from the reports, where a lot of fans have a lot of questions with the name that's being suggested. The name that's being suggested is Fermin Aldegar. Now, as you know, the VR46 Academy, it's Italian riders. And what they have done in the past is promote, through the ranks of Moto3, Moto2, then they get to MotoGP. Of course, Pecco Bagnaia has won the MotoGP World Championship. And that kind of set the project as it's complete. There's not really any riders coming through in terms of, Moto3. In Moto2, you have Celestino Vietti. And that is it. There is no one really else that's coming through into the MotoGP class. The early riders of the academy, the VR46 Academy, are already in MotoGP, so the end goal has already happened. And this seems to be a change of direction. Fermín Aldeguer is Spanish, and it appears that the comments from Uccio, they really like Aldeguer. And from what I believe, Fermín Aldeguer was also offered the Master Camp VR46 Moto 2 ride on board a Calix, but that team is sponsored by Yamaha and VR46. So were they trying to get him into that part of the project in Moto 2? But now that the inevitability of Marini going to Honda has freed up a VR46 ride, was this Yamaha and VR46's plan to get Aldeguer into MotoGP somehow? And then in 2025, we could potentially see the VR46 team change to Yamaha machinery to be a satellite Yamaha team. And I think that could be something to look at. They want to get him in the MotoGP so he's on Yamaha's books. And this could be a smart move in terms of, the VR46 Academy and Yamaha working together to promote more riders outside of Italy into this academy. That is just my crazy thinking about the situation. I know it seems really it's so endless, and it's just me thinking about the situation, but I think it sounds pretty good that they're going to go for Aldeguer and get him on a competitive machine next year in the Ducati, which would be teammates alongside Marco Bezzecchi. And he's hit form at the right time. Has Aldeguer, he is sensational. His last few rounds have been incredible. He won the Malaysian Grand Prix by 7.1 seconds. He's had 3 pole positions in a row. He has hit form at the best possible time. And I think that there is the possibility that we could see Marini at Honda and Aldeguer at VR46 on a Ducati next year, which is just incredible. This season has took so many turns in terms of the rider market. Who knows what is going to happen? Everything has changed so much in the past few days, the week, and it's all really down to Marc Marquez leaving Honda, essentially. I always say it whenever that day would come, that the rider market would do very strange things, and especially in a year where the contract situation for a lot of riders is complicated because they aren't really expiring their contracts until next season. Even when I think back at the weekend at the start, it was mentioned that Protus Spargo was going to be considered by Honda. He then shut that down on Friday. And then we get to Saturday and the real possibility of Luca Marini. He wasn't denying anything. There was plenty of chat that, he was up for this move. And yeah, we're in this situation now where it looks like we're just waiting for official confirmation for Luca Marini to join Repsol Honda. And yeah, the other story, like I said, with Fermín Aldeguer, I don't know how that's going to play out. There's not as much information available in terms of this story as the Marini one, because the Marini one's so much bigger. But I think that if Aldeguer goes to VR46, what a place to land at, and what a bike to end up on your first season as a MotoGP rookie. We just seen Pedro Acosta fantastically win the Moto 2 world title this season. He's ended up on a KTM. I imagine if he looks across and he sees Fermín Aldeguer on a Ducati, a little bit of him would be not annoyed, but yeah, that would put fire under him as well. We could get a very nice rookie battle in 2024. Yeah, guys, what an incredible season we're having in terms of just rider market and rider moves. How do you think this is going to play out? Just follow us on social media for all the coverage of this. Christ MotoGP on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Head over to Christ.net for all the latest information and all the latest news. Subscribe to our YouTube channel here, and we'll see you next time.